This week we speak about the building of the Mishkan. The building of the Mishkan. Ve'osuli Mishkan v'shachanti b'seicham. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, make me a Mishkan and I will rest in your midst. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, God says, I want everyone to feel like this Beis HaMikdash, this Mishkan. Beis HaMikdash is later, but this Mishkan belongs to every single Jew. And how am I going to do that? V'yichuli Teruma. Every single Jew is going to take some kind of gift and give it to the Mishkan. Nobody will be exempt. Everybody is responsible to do this. And this is the machzis ha-shekel. This is the half a shekel. We're also going to give a half a shekel right before Purim. Right by Purim, right by Mincha. People give machzis ha-shekel, a half a shekel. And it's to commemorate this time of the year where the Beis HaMikdash, the Mishkan was built. And when the Mishkan was built, also Klal Yisroel all contributed. So this way, this wasn't a building that belonged only to this individual or that individual. It was collectively, it belonged to Klal Yisroel. But the terminology that's used over here is a very interesting terminology. V'yikhuli Teruma. They will take for me a Teruma. What does that mean, they will take? So the question that everybody asks, it should say, they should give. Why take? What's the idea of taking? There's a story with an individual that saved the king's son. And he saves the king's son. And the king tells him, you know what? I don't know how to pay you back. I don't know how to pay you back. You saved my son. My son is more than any amount of money that I could possibly give you. What could I give you? He says, you know what? I'm going to allow you to go to my treasure house, and for 2 hours you could take whatever you want. Anything you take belongs to you. And the guy is excited. Wow, wonderful. He's going to collect all the stuff. He's going to retire. That's it. He goes to the treasure house, and he fills up bags, and he begins to carry it out to bring it to his car. And he brings one bag, and it's heavy. It's heavy. And he brings another bag, and it's too much already. And he thinks to himself, what's going on? I don't understand. I did the king a favor, and now I got to work extremely hard because I did the king a favor? And what's wrong with this? How does he pay me back? This is his payment. I'm sitting and working here for 2 hours of sweating away. I should have never saved the son. I wouldn't have had this headache now of emptying out his treasure house to my car. Obviously, we all understand how foolish this is. Nobody asked you to empty it out. You want to go back home. Nobody needs you to do anything. And in reality, this is exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us. He gives us mitzvahs. He gives us commandments. And those mitzvot, yes, they're hard, some of them. They're difficult. We're carrying a burden on our shoulder. It's not easy. But who is gaining from it? We're the only ones gaining from it. There's no one that gains from this except for us. And in a sense, this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, V'yikhuli Teruma. V'yikhuli Teruma, let them take. When they're building this Mishkan, they're not building a Mishkan for me. They're not doing anything for me. I'm okay. I'm God. I'm not missing anything. By definition, I'm not missing anything. Right? But, v'yikhu, let them take it for themselves. When they're actually giving, it's nothing more than them taking. A person thinks to himself, I'm giving to a poor person, wow, thank God I was around. If I wasn't around, God would have had to create another guy like me, another wonderful guy like me that's willing to give this poor person out, otherwise he would have dropped dead. No, not at all. That's not what's happening. As Chazal tell us, that more than the person that receives is actually the person that gets. Is really the person that gives is really the one that's receiving the greatest amount. Eov said it in a very, very powerful way. Eov writes, Im chotoso matifal boy. If you did a sin, if a person sinned, What did you do against God? You think you did something? Is God any worse off? You didn't do anything. Nothing happened. V'robu p'shoecha ma ta'aseh lo. And if your sins grew large, what did you do to him? He's not damaged. It's not like anything bad happened to God. V'im tzodakto ma titen lo. And if you were righteous and you did a mitzvah, what did you give him? You didn't give anything. He's not better off now that you did a mitzvah. God is not better off. Mami yodecho yikach. What is he going to take from your hand? Is there anything that you could give God from your hand? In other words, what Eov is saying, in a sense, God doesn't gain or doesn't lose whether you do a sin or you do a mitzvah. There's no gain over there for him. He was the same God before the mitzvah, and he was the same God after the mitzvah. He was the same God before the sin, and he was the same God after the sin. You did nothing for God. And therefore, a person has to have this approach. V'yikhuli truma. Which means to say, when I do something good, there's only one person in this world that gains. And that's me. When we think we're giving that poor person, or we give a donation to the shul, or whatever we do, it's not for the individual that's receiving. We're the only ones that are gaining. God will not drop the ball. It's people think, you know what, and I see this all the time. Oh, if I don't donate to the shul, if you don't donate to the shul will still exist. If you don't put on tefillin, the world is still going on. If a person doesn't keep Shabbos, still nothing runs any different. You didn't do anything for God. Nothing. V'yikhuli truma. All you're doing is simply taking for yourself. Simply taking for yourself. And a person has to have this approach in life. The approach that I do, whatever I do at the end of the day, I'm going to gain from it. God, by definition, is not missing a thing. Right. By definition, right? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create us? The only purpose he created us is to do good for us. That's the only person. That's the beginning, that's the end. Just to bestow good upon people. Right. That's it. So meaning to say, so God gave us 613 commandments. He says, go grab it. You're right now in the treasure house. Grab what you can. Don't be like the guy complaining, oh my God, this is too heavy. What am I doing? Right. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I could go ahead and be against him if I get upset. And so this is what Eov is saying. Nothing is altered. Believe me. Right. You can't spite him. He's God. He's infinite. There's nothing that you could do against him. A person meets someone at the crossroads. And when a person meets this individual at the crossroad, he asks him, which way is the best way for me to get to my town? So this individual answers him, there's derech aruka ktsara and ktsara aruka, which means to say there's a short, long way and a long, short way. What does that mean? He's talking to him in riddles. What does that mean? A long, short way and a short, long way. It means to say that there's a way that you're going to have a nice paved road in the beginning, but the end is all full of thorns and you're going to get bloody and it's going to be problematic. Or you could take this road and it's long, short. There's a little bit of bumps, but the end, you're cruising away. You're cruising. In a sense, that is what our approach in life is. And our approach in life in everything. A person goes to college, a person studies hard, puts a lot of effort. Yes, he's taking the long, short way. It's long, it's hard, but eventually it's going to cruise and it's going to be easy. Or a person in his youth could party away. He could have a great time. But he's taking the short, long way. At the end, when he'll have a mishpacha, he'll have family, he'll have children, he'll have a very, very difficult time. So everything in life is this way. And this is the same thing with a person and his religion. A religious person, a lot of times, yes, he's got some restrictions. He has to do things a certain way. But at the end, a person will appreciate it. And you see this so many times. I remember speaking to a person You know what? In fact, I don't think he minds if I say it. The one that started this year, Ronan, the one that started it, we owe him a lot of credit.
Tzaddik.
Yes, Tzaddik. He told me, and he used to tell me many times, he says, you know, Rabbi, when my parents came to this country, so they sent me to yeshiva, and they didn't have anything. They didn't have anything. We were poor, and they sent me to yeshiva. And their friends would ask them, what are you doing? Look at us, no tuition, we're driving nice cars, it's beautiful, we're having a wonderful life. Years later is when everything came very, very clear. Years later, you saw the crossroads that these two families, or these number of families, were presented with. One chose to be poor and to stick it out and to send a kid to yeshiva, and today that family has children and grandchildren and tremendous amount of nachas. And the other ones took the other path. It was public school, it was whatever path they wanted to take. But at the end of the day, they always turned to Ronan's parents and they said, who gave you the wisdom? Who gave you the sense? You ask them, where are your grandchildren? Oh, don't ask. My children, I have a child in San Francisco, he's living with a girl. I always tell him, why can't you give me a little bit of nachas? Get married already. Give me grandchildren. I always convince him, but he never listens to me. Why? You took the short road, which is tremendously long. So a person has to understand, v'yichuli truma. When you follow HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ways, you're not giving to God. You're giving to yourself. At the end of the day, you're going to be the one to have all that nachas. It's not something that you give away. Oh, the tuitions is hard. People get, right, when they begin to write the check for the tuition, they develop instant arthritis. Very, very hard to write the check, right? Why? This should be the first thing. This is the investment that will help for life. This is the nachas. We talked about your daughter's nachas. This is the nachas. It pays off. It pays off in this world. We're not talking about the next world. Of course, in the next world, we all believe that we're going to get tremendous amount of reward. But forget that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about now. We want instant cash, right? We want cash in this world. And this is what it is. We receive cash in this world. The cash is that tremendous amount of nachas where all of a sudden you have your children, you know where they are. It's not like a child. You ask the parent stays up till 3 o'clock in the morning because the daughter decided to hang out with a bunch of girls and you don't know where she is. This doesn't happen. This is not the life that we look forward to. No. The life we look forward to, bonecha sovev l'shulchanecha, your children around your house, around your table. You have the Shabbos table, and it's enjoyable with singing, with good food. When does that happen? That happens if you take the long way, which is very short at the end, and not the short way, which is full of thorns and full of miseries, and there's absolutely no nachas for anything that a person has done. We know the Gemara tells us, schar mitzvah b'hai al maleko, which means to say that the reward of a mitzvah in this world doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. What does that mean? What does that mean that there's no reward in this world? Reb Chaim Shmulevitz explains that what it means is that God wants to give us so much, but we're not capable. We don't have the wherewithal to be able to accept all that goodness. For example, if a person comes to you with a cup and he says, you know what, can you please fill the entire Atlantic Ocean in this cup? It's impossible. It's not possible, right? It's the same thing when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to give us enjoyment that is stored in the world to come. There's no way He could give us in this world. This world, we're holding a little cup. How much could you put in this little cup? How much enjoyment does a person have, period, in this world? It's very, very little enjoyment. You give him a little bit of food, you got to wait 6-7 hours until you can give him some more good food, right? Every enjoyment is very, very short-lived. And therefore, in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu cannot really pay us. And a person has to understand that there's many levels of enjoyment. Many levels of enjoyment. And each time a person has to graduate to the next level. We understand that a little child, 3 years old, enjoys a pacifier. He loves it. It's great. It calms him down. He looks forward to it. It's great. But if that little child becomes 20 years old and he's still enjoying a pacifier, it's very concerning at that point. At that point, you got major problems. Right? Why? Because you expect him to graduate with the enjoyment. A person that stays with the enjoyment of only earthly things in this world, it's a tremendous problem. You tell a person, no, what about Shabbos? Well, Shabbos, I enjoy driving, I enjoy going to the beach. These are tiny enjoyments. This is such a little minute thing. How could you give away so much for a tiny enjoyment? Besides the fact that you sit around a Shabbos table with children, with singing, with cholent, with kugel, with all the greatest foods, and you give it away for something so tiny. It's like still sticking to the pacifier. When you're 20, 40, 50, 60, get out of the pacifier. It's time for something that really is moving, for something that enriches your soul, for something that gives you spirituality and fills you up. I was just yesterday, unfortunately, as a rabbi, I get to deal with end-of-life issues. So I went to visit Jack Hershkowitz's father-in-law. Unfortunately, this should help him out also this year. And it's touch and go. It's touch and go. And I decided before I went that, let me take maybe a grandchild. Maybe we could do something. So I called up Jack and I asked him, let's take somebody. So he says, you know what, take Monica. And Monica was smart enough to bring her guitar. She brings her guitar and she's playing over there. And the person was completely unresponsive. Her grandfather was unresponsive until she started to play, and in the middle, he literally opened his eyes without any strength, but fighting as much as he can, and leaning towards her and saying to her, basically, he couldn't talk, but just the gestures. I stood there dumbfounded. I was watching this. I couldn't stop watching it. She brought him to life. On the way back, I take her back, and I said, you did such an amazing thing for your grandfather. So she tells me, and this is, I think she's 16, whatever, I don't know how old she is, 16, 17. She tells me, Rabbi, I never had such a good feeling in my life when I was able to give life to my grandfather. I really want to continue doing this type of thing. I think I'm going to visit people in hospitals. What does that mean? I said, you know why you were so happy? Because you did something godly. You weren't busy with something physical. Physical brings you tiny amount of enjoyment. This type of feeling, this elated feeling that you receive now, is something you could only do, you could only get and feel when you do something godly. That's a higher level of pleasure. It's not the same simple level of pleasure. That's the idea. V'yikchu li teruma. Take for myself. In other words, when you do, take something higher. Take a Shabbos, take a tefillin, take a tzitzis. Take for yourself. Grab. Because these are items that will forever, ever stay with you. Chafetz Chaim says, he brings a mashal, similar mashal to what we had before. He brings a mashal with an individual that saves the king's wife. And the king tells him, go to my treasure, I'll take whatever you want. This guy's a little bit smarter. He prepares, he brings bags, and when he's in the treasure house, he doesn't talk to anybody. He doesn't eat. He doesn't breathe. He's busy working every moment. And he's schlepping and working hard. And he empties out a tremendous amount. Years later, his children come to him and tell him, Grandpa, his children, grandchildren, Grandpa, Dad, tell us, what was the best day in your life? And he says, I want you to tell me. What do you think the best day? Well, one grandchild says, when the king honored you. Another grandchild says, when you stood at the wedding of your daughter. And each one is bringing another thing. And he says, you know what the best time of my life was? When I didn't eat, when I was working extremely hard, when I didn't go to the bathroom, although I was working 10 hours a day, when I didn't stop for one moment, I didn't even breathe. I was sweating buckets and I was working. That was the best time of my life. In the king's treasure house, working for 10, 12 hours. That was the best time of my life. We look at a person that works and tries to be frum, tries to be religious, tries to do every possible mitzvah. And we have to understand that person, he's a ben chayrin. It says, "Ein lecho ben chayrin ela misha oisek b'Torah." Who is a ben chayrin? Someone that delves into Torah. Why are you a ben chayrin? Why are you a free man? Look at this other guy. He does whatever he wants. He could sit and watch 25 channels today at the same time, eating popcorn, drinking soda and beer, and a free life. Free life, right? It's wonderful. It's amazing. I have a better life if I'm sitting and working hard. Says the Chafetz Chaim. Yeah, absolutely. Because that work, you're working with an idea that you're saving for eternity. And not only for eternity, even now your life is going to be so much better. Just like that individual that was working in the king's treasure without taking a moment's pause. And you look at him, you say, wow, what do you mean? Look what he's doing. I'm able to do whatever I want. Look at him working hard. But this was the best day of his life. Rabbi Eliashiv says, what's the difference between a slave and a free person? What's the difference? A slave works hard. I know plenty of free people that work extremely hard. Right? The richest people in our community work 16 to 20 hours a day. Okay? I know, personally, I know. So what's the difference between a slave and somebody that's working hard? They both work hard. Could be the person that's free is working a lot harder than the slave. What's the difference? Says Rabbi Eliashiv, there's one difference. One, at the end of the day, pockets the money in his own pocket, and the slave, at the end of the day, only enriches his boss. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'yikhu li truma. Take for yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you're working in this world and you're working extremely hard, right? What happens at the end? At the end, what are you taking with you? What do you have? So you worked for the wife and for the kid and for the, who knows, maybe for the second husband and who knows for what? Right? Who knows for who you worked for? If a person works very, very hard, who knows? He could get a heart attack and the next husband will have it. So who are you working hard for? But if you do something spiritual, of course, if a person works hard so he could put his kid in yeshiva, so he could give a donation, so he could help this one out, he could be available for that individual, then that work is work that he will get schar for. He'll get credit for that hard work. That hard work is eternity. He's not wasting his time. But a person's focus is only that I should make my lifestyle so wow. And that's his entire purpose in life. Then at the end of the day, he's missing the v'yikhu li truma that you'll take. You're not taking anything. You're not taking anything. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us in the beginning, and Eov says, believe me, whatever you're doing in life, a person comes to shul, he thinks to himself, God, now I came to shul and I stayed for a shiur, now my business God, you owe me one. What are you kidding me? What kind of joke is this? Right? You owe me one now. Right? Now my business should run. Shouldn't have any problems today. Who are you kidding? It's for God or for yourself? And therefore, V'yikhuli Teruma, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, take for yourself. Because at the end of the day, I could hold my own. I don't need anyone. With this concept in mind, we could really capitalize on each moment in life. Because any time we have an opportunity that comes our way, and we grab it, it's ours for eternity. We give a poor man $10. It's wonderful, $10 a meal. But doesn't compare to what he gave us. He gave us something that we will never forget. We could always look back and say, I'm happy I gave it away. I don't feel poorer or richer. I'm happy I gave it away. I wish everyone a good Shabbos, and thank you for listening. And we should go with that attitude, that let's grab and grab. We're right now in the King's treasure, in the King's treasure house. No mitzvah should be too hard. We should never complain, oh my God, what is the King doing to me? He's giving me this hard mitzvah. It's for you. Take it, grab it, enjoy it, and it's yours for life.